You meet someone new. The chemistry is undeniable. You feel understood in ways you've never felt before. And then, 3 months later, you're sitting alone, wondering how you ended up here again. Heartbroken, confused, replaying the same ending you've lived through 5 times before. Here's what no one tells you. You're not unlucky in love. You're trapped in a psychological loop so precise, so invisible, that you can't see it even as you're living it. The pattern is everywhere. It shows up in the person you're attracted to at the party. It whispers in your ear when you ignore red flags. It makes you feel like you're choosing freely, when in reality, your subconscious mind made the decision weeks ago. Behavioral psychology has a name for this: repetition compulsion. But that clinical term doesn't capture what it really feels like. The strange gravity that pulls you toward the same type of person, the same conflicts, the same devastating conclusion. Most people believe they learn from their mistakes, that each failed relationship teaches them what to avoid next time. But the truth is far more unsettling. The human brain doesn't just remember pain. It seeks to recreate it, to solve it, to finally get it right. And in that desperate attempt to rewrite the past, we end up writing the same story over and over again. What if I told you that the person you're attracted to isn't random? That there's a hidden mechanism selecting them, filtering through hundreds of potential partners to find the one who will hurt you in exactly the way you need to be hurt? The magnetic pull. It begins with recognition, not conscious recognition, something deeper. You meet someone, and within minutes, sometimes seconds, you feel it. A pull, an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Your chest tightens, your mind goes quiet. You tell yourself it's chemistry, attraction, fate. But your subconscious is doing something else entirely. It's scanning for patterns from your past. It's looking for the emotional signature of your earliest relationships, usually with a parent or caregiver. That unavailable father who never quite saw you. That emotionally volatile mother who alternated between warmth and withdrawal. Your brain learned what love feels like during those formative years, and now it's searching for that exact frequency. Psychological research calls this imago matching, the unconscious template we carry for romantic partners. The person who makes your heart race isn't necessarily good for you. They're just familiar. And to your nervous system, familiar equals safe, even when familiar means painful. Here's the mechanism. When you meet someone who matches your imago, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, norepinephrine. You feel alive, you feel seen, but you're not falling in love with who they actually are. You're falling in love with the opportunity to finally heal an old wound. The honeymoon illusion. Stage 2 is intoxication. For weeks, maybe months, everything feels perfect. They seem to understand you in ways no one else has. You finish each other's sentences. You stay up until dawn talking. You think, finally, someone who gets me. But something else is happening beneath the surface. You're both performing, not consciously lying. Something more subtle. You're each presenting the version of yourself that you believe the other person needs to see. And more importantly, you're ignoring the signs that don't fit the story you want to tell. Cognitive biases take over during this phase. Confirmation bias makes you notice only the evidence that supports your fantasy. You ignore the way they dismiss your feelings. You explain away the night they flirted with someone else. Your mind is invested in the story now, and contradictory information gets filtered out before it reaches your conscious awareness. The emotional patterns you learned in childhood are getting activated one by one. If love meant chasing someone who was inconsistent, you'll find the inconsistency romantic. If love meant earning approval through achievement, you'll work overtime to impress them. The relationship becomes a stage where you're rehearsing your oldest role. The trigger moment. Then it happens. The moment when the real person emerges from behind the projection. They cancel plans. They criticize you in a way that lands too close to an old wound. They become distant right when you're feeling most vulnerable. And here's where the psychological loop tightens. This moment, this exact experience of disappointment, is what your subconscious was waiting for. Not because you're self-destructive, but because your nervous system is trying to recreate the original wound so it can finally heal it. Human behavior follows this paradoxical rule. We are attracted to what hurts us because our psyche believes that if we can get this person, this unavailable, inconsistent, or emotionally distant person, to finally love us correctly, we can retroactively fix the original injury. It's not masochism, it's hope disguised as attraction. The desperate dance. Stage 4 is the most painful. You know something is wrong, but you can't let go. You analyze every text message. You modify your behavior, trying to become whoever they need you to be. You sacrifice your boundaries, your values, your sense of self, all in service of keeping them close. This is where manipulation and emotional patterns intertwine. Not because either person is malicious, but because you're both dancing to music from your past. They pull away, you chase, you become too available, they lose interest. The cycle perpetuates itself through a series of predictable behavioral psychology principles. Intermittent reinforcement, the psychological phenomenon that makes gambling addictive, takes hold. They give you just enough attention to keep you hoping, but withhold enough to keep you anxious. Your brain becomes wired to the unpredictability. The inconsistency itself becomes the addiction. And beneath it all, your self-sabotage mechanism is running. Because on some level, you don't believe you deserve stable love. The chaos feels more honest. The struggle feels more real. The inevitable end. The relationship ends. Sometimes explosively, sometimes through slow erosion. But it ends in a way that confirms your deepest fear about yourself, that you're not lovable, that you always choose wrong, that you're destined to be alone. You grieve, you swear you'll never do this again. You make promises to yourself about what you'll look for next time. And then, months or years later, you meet someone new. The chemistry is undeniable. You feel understood in ways you've never felt before. The loop closes. So what's actually happening beneath these stages? Why do psychological patterns have such power over rational people? The answer lies in how the subconscious mind processes emotional information. Your conscious mind believes it's in control, choosing partners, making decisions, learning from experience. But your conscious mind is actually just the narrator, creating stories to explain decisions your subconscious already made. The subconscious operates through association, not logic. It doesn't care about your happiness in the future. It cares about survival right now. And to your subconscious, patterns from childhood equal survival. Even if those patterns involve neglect, inconsistency, or emotional unavailability, they kept you alive. So your nervous system keeps searching for them. Childhood imprinting creates what psychologists call attachment styles, unconscious blueprints for how relationships work. If your caregivers were inconsistent, you developed an anxious attachment style, always worried about abandonment. If they were distant, you learned avoidant attachment, keeping people at arm's length. These aren't conscious choices. They're behavioral loops encoded in your neural pathways before you could speak. Cognitive biases then reinforce these patterns. The availability heuristic makes recent painful memories feel more true than distant happy ones. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you in bad relationships because you've already invested so much. Loss aversion makes the fear of being alone more powerful than the hope of finding something better. But the deepest mechanism is this. Trauma creates a kind of emotional logic that doesn't make sense from the outside. If you were abandoned as a child, your subconscious learned that love equals loss. So when you meet someone stable and available, your nervous system reads it as dangerous. It doesn't feel like love because it doesn't match the template. You become bored, you create distance, you unconsciously sabotage it. And when you meet someone unavailable, your whole system lights up. Finally, something that feels like love. This is the dark psychology of repetition. We're not drawn to what's good for us. We're drawn to what's familiar, and we'll sacrifice our well-being to maintain that familiarity. The reason this psychological loop never breaks on its own is simple. You can't see the pattern from inside it. It's like asking a fish to describe water. The pattern isn't something you have, it's something you are. Every relationship feels unique when you're in it. This person is different. This time will be different. You genuinely believe you're making new choices, but you're seeing through the same eyes, feeling through the same nervous system, responding to the same triggers. Human behavior is remarkably consistent because our emotional patterns were set early, before we had the cognitive capacity to question them. By the time you're old enough to consciously choose partners, you're already operating from an unconscious template built in the first 5 years of your life. The pattern repeats because your subconscious is still trying to solve an unsolvable problem: how to get your original caregivers to love you differently. Every new partner is a substitute, a proxy, a chance to finally get it right. But you can't rewrite the past through the present. The math doesn't work. And here's the cruelest part. The more you try to consciously override the pattern, the stronger it becomes. You tell yourself to date different types of people, but different usually just means a slight variation on the same theme. The unavailable artist instead of the unavailable businessman. The emotionally distant intellectual instead of the emotionally distant athlete. The pattern repeats because it's serving a function. It's protecting you from the thing you fear most: real intimacy, real vulnerability, the terrifying possibility of being truly seen and loved for who you are. Because if that happened and you still got hurt, you'd have no defenses left. Better to stay in the loop you know. Breaking free doesn't mean fixing yourself. It means seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Start here. The next time you feel that magnetic pull towards someone, that instant chemistry, that feeling of finally being understood, pause. Don't act. Don't text. Don't rationalize. Just notice it. Ask yourself, what does this feeling remind me of? Not who does this person remind me of, but what does this feeling remind me of? If the feeling is intense, urgent, consuming, it's probably not about them. It's about you meeting yourself in another form. Second, study your pattern from the outside. Write down your last 3 or 4 significant relationships. Not the surface details, but the emotional arc. How did each one begin? What did you feel? When did it start to fall apart? What role did you play? Look for the repetition. The pattern will reveal itself if you're willing to see it. Most people never do this because they're afraid of what they'll find. They're afraid they'll discover they've been unconsciously choosing pain. But awareness doesn't condemn you, it frees you. Third, learn to distinguish between attraction and recognition. Attraction should have some element of mystery, of discovering someone new. Recognition feels like coming home, and coming home to a familiar wound is not the same as finding love. When you meet someone who doesn't trigger your pattern, someone who's actually available, consistent, kind, your nervous system will scream danger. You'll feel bored, unexcited. You'll think there's no chemistry. That's not absence of chemistry. That's absence of trauma. Your system doesn't know what to do with healthy love because it's never experienced it before. The work is to stay anyway, to sit with the discomfort of safety, to let your nervous system slowly learn that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. Fourth, understand that you can't think your way out of this. Psychological patterns live in the body, not the mind. They're stored in your nervous system, in your gut reactions, in the way your chest tightens when someone pulls away. Intellectual understanding helps, but it's not enough. You have to feel your way through to the other side. And finally, accept that breaking the pattern doesn't mean you'll never be attracted to the wrong person again. It means you'll notice faster. You'll catch yourself mid-loop instead of 6 months in. You'll choose to walk away before the pattern completes itself. Freedom isn't the absence of the pattern. It's the ability to see it for what it is. You meet someone new. The chemistry is undeniable. You feel understood in ways you've never felt before. But this time, you pause. This time, you recognize the feeling, not as love, but as memory, not as destiny, but as pattern. The psychological loops that shape our relationships aren't our fault. They were built before we had a choice. But continuing to run them, once we see them, that's where our power lives. Every love trap you've fallen into was teaching you something, not about other people, about yourself, about the invisible forces that guide your choices, about the difference between what feels like love and what actually is love. The pattern doesn't disappear when you see it, but it loses its grip. And in that small space between stimulus and response, between feeling the pull and acting on it, you finally become free. The trap only works if you don't know you're in it. Now you know.